the event itself had this great kind of combination of lecture on theological reflection, as well as kind of personal testimonies and stories, both from pastors and people who'd work with community organizing, and then opportunity for those of us in ministry at various levels to interact, both responding to the biblical and theological reflection, as well as our own experiences and our responses to what had been shared in testimony. And so by being able to engage from various kind of this multi-dimensional way of reflecting and learning and interacting together, to me that provided a really rich environment for us to consider what is a faithful response in our day and our time demand of us, and what kinds of models are there that are either challenging what we're doing or maybe inspiring new kind of directions for us. So in terms of the format, it was a very helpful structure to it. But really what makes those events is the people who are a part of it. And this is one of the profound shifts that I've experienced going from a college student who'd been exposed to urban ministry and had a lot of kind of great ideals about, what if the whole church just came together on all these issues, and you go from those wonderful ideals that the church as a body, isn't it a shame we have the denominations and separations that keep us from working together? What power there would be. So that image, I think it's a Ray Bakke image of exegeting a city, and it's great because those of us who love to exegete Scripture find that a really helpful metaphor, because one of the great sins of biblical exposition is eisegesis, reading into a text, versus exegesis, where you're really attempting to dig into the text and to allow it to speak for itself. And I think so often in coming to ministry in a city, we are often guilty of eisegesis. We say, this is what we think a city needs. This is what we think the issues are, and sort of impose our own grid on what needs to happen and what could and should happen. To me, I love this idea of taking the city as our text, as our research topic, and attempting to come at it honest about our own biases and backgrounds, but trying to allow the needs of the city and the issues and specific concerns to kind of come out of our own hands-on understanding. So instead of parsing verbs and doing kind of cross-references and our own word studies, we're learning about communities. We're learning about kind of institutions in the life of the church, in the life of the city, and how the church interacts with that. And take one thing, which is this whole idea of having field trips to different churches in the life of the city. Grace Urban Ministries sponsored that for this group of people that went to various churches, came to Christian Center to learn what we're doing and how we're engaged in the city. Then I think of the way that you've set up kind of one-on-one appointments with people who own businesses right in the community around the church, to learn what their vision and role is in the life of the neighborhood and the community. That kind of engagement, that kind of exposure, this is not to say even touch the issues related to Grace Urban Ministries' involvement in schools and the development of job training programs and language development. To me, Grace Urban Ministry has really set a real model for what exegeting a city can look like. You know, when we were younger doing Bible study, we had this idea that the goal is to be objective in interpreting the text. Don't bring any of your biases. Just come and just say, and some people would say, there's all these theological positions. I just want to know what the Bible says. And I think most of us have been disabused of the idea that you could be objective. I prefer to say, let's all be honest about our biases and allow our different perspectives to kind of correct, or at least to call into question the dominance of some of our prejudices, biases, perspectives. So I think it's in the multitude of perspectives that we get at clearer, better, deeper understandings, as opposed to somehow trying to rid ourselves of that. If that's true, and I believe it is, then we need each other.
I think probably an outcome of all these health fairs is that it forces us to recognize that we are limited in ourselves to even try to reach out to our own community. I mean, you know, we need a lot of help, we need a lot of resources, and so having this partnership or collaboration with other congregations, with other churches, I mean, that has really forced us to recognize that we really need each other to reach out to the community for God, that we cannot do it alone, that we are dependent on each other as well as on God. And I think by working together, we've been able to, you know, develop friendships. Hopefully that will go on and on and on, and that we can continue to work together. And as we strengthen our relationships with each other and reach out to our community, maybe the community at large will begin to see that, wow, the Christian community is really a very close, tight, but yet a loving and giving community. That they're not only just situated in their own neighborhood, but really they can see beyond their own, you know, four walls, beyond their own street, so to speak, and see that if there's a need in another part of town, they're willing to pitch in and to help out, that we really are part of the family of God. Yeah, well, I mean, definitely for a congregation-based health fair, the focus is on not only sharing, you know, helping people address some health needs, but really to be available to them spiritually. And I remember at one of the health fair, there was a lady who was just had a lot of issues. I mean, she was just sharing a lot with me. And I finally said, can I pray for you? And we just stopped and we paused and we prayed. And then I also introduced her to one of the pastors to do even more spiritual counseling. So I think that was really a wonderful experience. And I think other members might have also had the same experience, where you not only meet the physical needs of people, but more importantly, the spiritual needs of people. Yeah, so that was really exciting, because, you know, we began to realize that the area that God has placed us in really has a lot of Hispanics. There's some, you know, monolingual Chinese, but predominantly Hispanic, I would think, in this area. And so as we have these health fairs, open our doors to them, you know, there's going to be a lot of these monolingual Hispanic people utilizing these services. So it was great that we were able to invite our Spanish-speaking congregation that rents space from us, however small their congregation is. They were more than happy to come and join forces with us. And so they brought their language expertise. They brought some of them were professionals, like a pharmacist and nurses. And then above all, the pastor had a chance to witness to 3 people who came to this health fair, and he prayed for each one of them. So that was really just a wonderful experience. And it was, you know, and I think we'll be welcoming them back again, because now our focus this year will be working with the school across the street. Mm-hmm.
Craig asked me if I would oversee the project, it was the San Francisco Foundation which talked to GUM, which is the organization that Craig works for, which is from Grace Fellowship. And they talked to them, and they said they wanted to do a grant using church congregations doing earthquake preparedness. And the reason they wanted to do that was because they had discovered, especially since Katrina, that Christians really want to be part of relief. They want to do something when a disaster happens, and sometimes they're not organized or they don't know what to do. But the the agencies have realized that Christians really want to do something, and so they want to help them organize. They want to help them come together so that they can be more efficient in working with the other disaster agencies. Our project was several congregations coming together. It was Grace Fellowship Church, our church, Church of the Sojourners, St. Mary Martha Lutheran Church, Mission Presbyterian Church, and Dolores Park Church. So those, and GUM, which was the organizing, the branch of your church, Grace Fellowship. So those churches, we came together to think about what Christians can do in relationship to helping during a disaster that is different than a secular service agency. What do we have to offer? That was the question that we asked ourselves, and we also came together to learn what the other agencies have to offer us and how we can partner with them, and we met together 5 times. We had a big event in which our churches gathered. We had a worship time, and then we also had a little bit of seminar time, and then we opened it up to the community, and we offered services to the community from all the service agencies where they're offering their help in case of earthquake. What would they do? So those were the things we did. We planned that event, and we talked a whole lot about what our perspective should be as Christians and what we had to offer. That was really meaningful. And we also were very concerned about, in particular, our community, which is an immigrant community, and how we can help those people, or how we can be of service to those in the event of a disaster. And one of the issues that we realized was that people that live in this area, many of them are undocumented, and so they're a little bit leery of government agencies. So there might be more opportunity for us to serve them than a government agency. They might be more likely to come to us or to receive help from us than they would be from a government agency because of all the issues with ICE.
The luncheons have meant a great deal to me, especially, again, when you've grown up in this city and then started, I was doing ministry early on in this city as well, working with young people. Nothing really takes place in the city without the gatekeepers, so it's really the gatekeepers, those pastors and leaders, as they make connections with others, that, the church and everyone in it gets to, it opens up those opportunities for sharing and caring for one another, and also hearing God's heart in different areas. And so those luncheons has meant so much, because it, first of all, it allowed us to come together with, our other brothers and sisters that are part of Grace Urban Ministry, and of course the other pastors that were there. And we got to hear what God was doing, and sometimes we can get so caught up with just our little corner, of the block, but then to hear what God is doing all over the city, and then hearing the concerns that's happening in congregations and areas of ministry, and how we can pray and support each other. So it just brings us together. And, in our time of praying for one another, you feel affirmed, because many times, you feel that if you do things so long, I'm the only one doing this, or my need is so specific just to me. But when you start hearing the other concerns, you realize, wow, there are others who are dealing with certain issues, and how can we pray and support? So when you're meeting with groups of people who love God and have a heart for the city, it just encourages you to do that much more, to continue in your labor of love, in the area that God has called, us to as as a church, as a body, but also connecting. I think that was important too, making connection with other leaders, and that just opens the door for other ministry opportunities.
In the book of Acts, especially in the early chapters that we have, is this picture of the community of the church being gathered together, and how they share this common life, and because of that, there's not a needy person among them. And so God adds to their number those who are being saved. This is repeated in several places in the beginning of the book. But by the time you get to the end of the book, you have this very interesting story of the Apostle Paul, who is arrested and is being taken to Rome on this boat. And on this boat, there are fellow people that are how we call them, they're jailed, people that are basically prisoners. And then there's the ship crew, and then there's also the soldiers. And you find in that story that at different points, those people are only watching out for themselves. But the Apostle Paul is watching out for all of them. This is where you see the blessing of the church flowing out and spilling out into the blessing for all. And so where the other groups are trying to watch out for themselves, try to escape on their own and not care about the rest, Paul is watching out for them all. And there's this great scene where he is calling them to eat and breaking the bread before them and giving thanks to God, and basically bringing the presence of Christ and bringing the Lord into that boat where they are all sharing. And then the way the story ends up, that they all make it to the island safely together. The term alternative economic space, or alternative economics, or shared economics, I don't want to quibble about that, but it's not really language that I made up. But I think what I found was that when we began talking about the kind of things that we cared about, then people, oh yeah, well that's alternative economics. And really for us what it is that there are ways that people normally think about doing business or living arrangements or what have you, where you share economic, financial, whatever have you kind of things. And are there ways to think about doing those things that we do anyway? Like, go to work, have a place to live, run a business, but do that with the intent of bearing witness to God's redeeming work. And so I guess you could say I have a passion for that. I would also say that we've not had a lot of experience. We have our one ongoing long venture of Dayspring Technologies, and wanting to see God continue to use it to fulfill its purpose, which is to embody and bear witness to His redeeming work. But we have other ideas, and we would love to see more of that happen.
I was really excited, and it was a great opportunity when GUM came to Sojourners just a couple months ago, and I was surprised by that. It's really rare, it seems like, for groups to kind of visit each other if they live in the same place. So we have visitors in from, out of town all the time. But it seems like it's kind of hard for groups because they end up being defensive sometimes, or feel like they need to do something with the relationship more than just kind of know what is happening with the other congregation or group. And so I thought it was just really, really amazing that that a church would take time, especially on a weekend, to go visit other churches. And I just think that that's a really important value. I think one thing that I've observed in our church and others is that there's kind of this forgivable arrogance about what God is doing in your own congregation, in your own life, and certainly we should be excited about what God's doing with us. But I think it can get easy to forget that we're one thread in a big tapestry of the kingdom of God, and maybe we should be really excited about our color, but we can't forget that there's a larger tapestry. And I feel like that was a reminder to us. As well as just kind of an offering of saying, please tell us, we want to hear from you. It's just kind of an honoring thing to hear from visitors. So I think it's almost like the ligaments in the body, the people that really know how to join groups. And I think that that's a role that Craig Wong has played in the past, and and others. And I think that that's actually a really important role and something that we're really grateful for. I think that one of the important things that GUM is playing is an introductory role between bodies in the context of San Francisco. So there's an important role between groups. We're not all the body of Christ by ourselves, but a lot of times we just don't know what other groups are doing here. And GUM is almost like a person that would invite the innkeeper and the Samaritan to have coffee together and sit down and hear from each other what it's like to be a Samaritan and some of those struggles and issues facing, you know, what it means to take people to the inn, and then also to kind of introduce the Samaritan to the struggles of the innkeepers, what it's like to really have to care for a staff in one place and create beds and hospitality. And I feel like there's actually a really important role in being that third party that knows how to negotiate some of the in-between territory. And I think that that's really what GUM has done a really, an excellent job of and has a role for in the city.
So what I really appreciate about GUM is its deep rootedness in the community, and its rootedness in the neighborhood where the church is, really deepens, and it really feeds the work around immigration that GUM and the many leaders that from the church, many of the leaders from the church who've been active in GUM and been active in the work around immigration really come with that deep faith and that deep sense of commitment, because they can see the faces of the people who are affected by the policies that we're advocating about. They can see the faces and see the children. They can bring up the names that they know. Those are the people that those are the people that they love. Those are the people that they work with, that they worship with. And so I think it's that deep rootedness that GUM has in the community that has so enriched the San Francisco Interfaith Coalition. San Francisco Interfaith Coalition on Immigration. We've really been blessed to meet at Grace Fellowship Church for our meetings, and to come there knowing that not just our meetings are happening there, but so many of the services and programs that take place there through the church and through GUM. Partnering with GUM has really enriched the immigration work because there's so many leaders from the church, so many deeply committed servants of the church who have been able to live out their ministry and practice their ministry and be in service around immigration issues through the coalition, through GUM. And they've provided so many valuable resources, not just their knowledge, those of them who are lawyers, been able to help provide writing and interpreting laws, and people following legislation, folks accompanying families facing deportation, folks showing up at City Hall for hearings, showing up at the different rallies and public witness actions that have happened around the city. So it's so many ways, and all the work that's been done over the last few years, the members of the church have been there. Members of the church have been there in many different capacities, bringing their many gifts to the table. In addition to that, GUM has been such a key anchor for the Interfaith Coalition on Immigration in San Francisco, an anchor not just in where we meet, but an anchor in terms of the resources, an anchor in terms of the information that Craig and many of the other key staff and leaders have around immigration. They've just been key resource people for the coalition, and key resource people, key bridge people as we continue to try to partner with immigrant rights organizations, continue to partner with city officials, and continue to partner with other government officials. But they have sought in a very intentional way to build those bridges and to always keep the faith communities present in those discussions, and always keep the faith perspective, and always to be loving and always to be true to our faith in our interactions with all kinds of officials, even if we've been on opposing sides, even if we're opposing them in terms of policy, but to really see the sacredness and to try to be Christ-like in all that we do. I think one thing that's great about San Francisco is that it's a small city, it's a small county, and through the coalition, and the GUM people have been very active, have really sought to build relationship with our leaders in this city, and to have them know that the faith communities care deeply about immigration. So on many occasions we have met with Supervisor Carmen Chu, with other supervisors. We met with Senator Leland Yee and Senator Mark Leno, meeting with their offices to let them know that the faith community is deeply concerned about this issue, and to be able to meet with them in a way that wasn't just like it maybe more typical San Francisco politics or advocacy, but really to meet with them in the spirit of faith and to witness, and to thank them for their leadership, to pray for them in their own struggles as leaders, and to call them into greater collaboration and greater accountability to the community that they serve. So I think we've had a lot of great, not just visibility, but just the faith communities being a player and being present. When in City Hall, when they have the hearings and everybody gets 2 minutes to speak, being there, not just one person, but 3, 4, 5 people being there, and to even say, based on our scripture, we strongly believe that every youth should have due process, that youth should not be separated from their families, that children and parents shouldn't fear when they're dropping their kids off at school. So to be able to be there, to be part of the San Francisco mix, to be there, I think has been so valuable for the city, and so inspiring for other communities of faith to see that engagement. Last year was the 100th anniversary of the Angel Island Immigration Station, and somewhere about 6 months before that anniversary, I talked to Craig and some of the other GUM people, especially because there's a large Asian American presence at Grace Fellowship, and said, the Angel Island story, it's really important story for the Chinese communities, and how can we get Chinese churches to look at that story, to look at the Angel Island story again with fresh eyes, to look at it, to really uncover some of the wounds that are there, some of the painfulness in our own stories that we hadn't really been processed yet, and to use it as a way to also connect to what's happening now. So Craig and other people were on the committee at different times to be part of that planning committee, which culminated in a great day of pilgrimage of 400 people out there to Angel Island, and the production of a tremendous resource which tells the story of Angel Island and the congregations, the people of faith who accompanied and witnessed and showed compassion and mercy and showed advocacy and fought for justice for the detainees who were held at Angel Island, many of whom were our own ancestors. So that was just such an amazing story for us to uncover, to see not just one story, not just 2 stories, but to see this whole community of people who were active and engaged when it was Chinese predominantly who were being detained. And it called forth in us, what are we doing? And in many ways they are doing so much more than we're doing now. And it humbled me a great deal to think that a lot of these people were, the Chinese could have, by and large, just forgotten there, except for the Chinese community, but there were others who, especially non-Chinese people, who said it was really important. It was a real witness to their faith to be there and to shine light on what was happening at Angel Island, just as it's so important for our witness now to shine light on what's happening.
Well, from the promotoras, they really felt it was a really very rewarding experience to be able to share within their community how they can take care of themselves. Of course, they were part of formulating this program, so to be able to talk about good nutrition and lead on, give their own life examples and be role models was really good. Doing some of the dancing, and that was great. They enjoyed that. And just the interaction at the health fair and being able to answer questions and dismay disbeliefs or misconceptions about diabetes and how you can stay healthy and not be devastated by that, either whether you have it or whether you can prevent it. So that they've all had a great experience with that. There are probably about 2 or 3 that we do a year, and of course I think Grace Urban Ministries is the largest one in terms of incredible setup and activities. And what I like about there is it's not the street fair where people are passing through. You really organize things so it's more of a comprehensive health screening, from everything from bed bugs and how you deal with that to chronic diseases, and actually doing exams with professionals that are there to help out in all the fields. So that, and good eating, and so there was not only the health professionals there to do real exams and screenings and referrals, but also to teach them healthy things around diet. The dietary examples and the cookings are great. So people really walk in there and they're kind of in this health fair that's a little more comprehensive rather than just a street fair where they're passing and many things it's hit and miss. So I like that. That's great. Well, again, because you're so entrenched in the community, and one, you have the trust of your parishioners and the people there, it's not only take care of your soul, but take care of your health. And I believe if you have the opportunity to role model that and say that's just as important as being able to take care of your soul, then I think that will help patients, or I should say the community, become more proactive about staying healthy and being a healthy community. So we ourselves are at General Hospital are establishing a wellness center and hoping that that will have some linkage with the communities as well, not only focusing on the disease, but the prevention. And even if you have a condition, a chronic condition like diabetes, there are other things like exercise and dance and meditation, and then to take care of the whole person, not just the condition or the disease.
You know, reaching the African American community in health-related issues is a challenge. But one of the things that we do know is that the church in the African American community has always been the bedrock. And so and even though church participation is down in the African American community, it is still the place to go. It's been that historically, and I think it will always remain that. Thank the good Father for that. However, even though church participation is down, church outreach is up. So the church is doing more than just having something on Sundays now. They're working more with the youth. They're working more in the community around homelessness, around feeding. So it's the natural place for you to land when you want to implant something in the African American community. You want to take a message to it. So as a result, we decided that we would have a faith initiative. And it's just been wonderful how we've been embraced in the faith community. And for myself personally, it's been very fulfilling. I was raised in the church. I believe in the good Father above. And so it's like it's a part of me. It's not something that I have to think about doing. It's something that I can enjoy doing. It's just an extension of what I know I'm supposed to do.
I've been at Sanchez School for 12 years, And so this has been a really special relationship, and it has grown in terms of our level of understanding of each other, of our level of respect, our level of trust and understanding. I know I've been to some events at Grace Fellowship that you've invited me to, and you've come to some events that we've had, and so it's been this really nice ebb and flow of this relationship that we've had over the years. And so as we've gotten to know each other and we've explored what we can carry out, there's been a lot of, it's changed over the years. And sometimes I remember in the past we've had some of our students go to tutoring programs at Grace Fellowship and participating in those tutoring programs. And then we started the dental program and expanding the dental program, and then the sealant program. But every year it's a little bit different because the resources that we have available change. But the one thing that always kind of binds us together and guides us in our work is this commitment to serving our community and our children and our families so well. And so when we've built this really strong foundation of relationships, then that guides us. And so when we run into an obstacle or a challenge, we look for solutions to that because we share this deep commitment of serving our community. And so it's really a joy and an honor to be associated with Grace Fellowship and to share in this commitment of serving our community. Well, the Project Magi has been something very, very special to us because it's this idea of evolving out of the needs of our children's lives and out of our classrooms and out of our classroom community. So Grace Fellowship has been very good listeners and wanting to seek ideas and what the needs are from our children and our teachers, and then being able to meet those needs in a time around the holidays. And so having this idea of the biblical story of the Magi bringing gifts is then carried out in our community in a very beautiful way here at Sanchez School. And it's a very nice part of this biblical storytelling that is carried out in 21st century here in the Sanchez School community and here in the Mission District in a very beautiful way. And just seeing the joy of the children when these gifts come and that give them the capabilities of enriching their learning, and the smiles on the teachers' faces when they know that they've been listened to and a need for their classroom to provide these enriching experiences is carried out. So that's a wonderful tradition that we have here through the relationship and the friendship with Grace Fellowship. This idea of the dental screening is incredibly important because it's going back to this commitment of serving our children and our community so well. And so just the generosity of the dentist through the congregation at Grace Fellowship coming in and all of the support staff from Grace Fellowship, and then joining forces with our school nurse and Claire from the sealant program, and all of the classroom teachers participating. And so being able to do the screening, but then also the education that's provided about dental hygiene and prevention and the follow-up. I know one thing that we're really committed to, that we always identify 5 to 10 students that have some serious dental needs, and so we really try and follow up to be able to address those needs. And so that's another really looking at the whole child, the whole family, the whole community, and really trying to meet the needs of our children, and particularly some of our children that don't always have access to health care or dental care in this case. So we're very committed to that, and we really value and are so thankful for the relationship and the services that are provided through this partnership, and particularly the generosity of the dentist from Grace Fellowship.
This is work that the foundation has been engaged in since the early 90s. Actually, it began in 1994 2004, when the foundation began to have conversations with faith leaders around the role of philanthropy in supporting faith-based organizations providing critical social services, community development programs, youth programs addressing homelessness, and other critical social issues. And it began as a conversation about how could philanthropic organizations provide the needed resources so faith communities could do their work to their maximum capacity and ability, leveraging all the wonderful resources and volunteer and in-kind contributions that faith communities bring to their work. It began as a conversation and then as multiple interviews around the Bay Area to see what the needs were and how could the foundation, the San Francisco Foundation, a community foundation in the Bay Area, partner with the faith community. And what was born was something called the FACE Initiative that has now become a long-term program of the San Francisco Foundation to build partnerships and support faith communities in addressing critical social and economic needs in the Bay Area. So the work takes many different forms. It's convening, policy work, small grants, capacity building, training, and direct technical assistance. And it's in that capacity that I met GUM. I'm thinking it's now 1996, according to Craig Wong, and I think we've partnered on so many projects that the list is quite exhaustive. It actually represents a lot of the areas of work that the FACE program has been involved with over the course of time, including supporting youth, job creation or job training, tutoring programs, immigration support, and bridging between different ethnic communities in neighborhoods, addressing the need for disaster preparedness in low-income communities. So many different arenas that we've worked together with GUM. I've heard congregations referred to as mediating institutions in our communities. I think there's a couple of different ways to think about it. Our congregational community, we're gathered to worship and to celebrate the Word of God and to celebrate and build community. But we're also there and to respond to community needs as they emerge and to partner with others, either in the faith community or outside of the faith community, to be able to be of service. And I guess what I would say is Grace Urban Ministries is an example of I would say a stellar example of what has happened all around the Bay Area and all around the country over many, many generations and decades. The faith communities are active agents for social service, social change, social justice. And I think the foundation's unique in some ways in the United States for having really recognized the power of faith-based organizing, faith-based social service, faith-based leadership, and the foundation has built this long-term partnership to strengthen the capacity of literally hundreds of congregations and faith-based organizations. We estimated years ago that we had touched 650 congregations or faith organizations. It has gone far beyond that over these years. And the congregational community, to go back to the mediating institution, is both a place of worship, a place of community building, of bridging communities, of building collaborations. And as I said earlier, I would say GUM is one of those amazing examples of not being an insular community, but being a community that's focused on outside of the walls of the church. And when I think back over the years, I think of the partnerships that have been created, whether it's the Mission Community Council playing a role in planning what happens around urban development and gentrification in the mission and how to make sure that families can still remain in our communities, whether it's partnering with Iglesia Presbiteriana de la Misión, Mission Presbyterian Church, to be able to address the issues of immigrant communities or the health needs of so many who are under or uninsured in our communities by offering health fairs, whether it's bringing congregations together to say, what's our disaster plan? When it happens, when we have a big earthquake, how will we together respond to those needs? So my experience with GUM is that it's always about how will we together with others be of service, walk with people who are in suffering and in need, and transform our communities to really reflect the deepest values that bring us together as a faith community. So the image that I have actually is Craig and Pam Chow and others have always invited me to all the events, and please be sure to come to the health fair or the disaster preparedness gathering. And I remember one health fair over at Mission Presbyterian Church and kind of coming into the room and seeing all of these providers from all throughout the Bay Area and largely San Francisco, whether it's clinic representatives, diabetes organization, American Heart Association, others, being there, donating their time, seeing the kind of cross-cultural work of a Latino congregation and a largely Asian faith community coming together, people giving of their time, drawing on other churches and other congregations for other assistance to be able to provide on-the-spot screenings, health services, and great resources to people in our community who don't have health insurance, don't have access, and don't easily have that information. That to me is transformational for not just the individuals that are served, it's transformational for the congregation members that participate, for the neighborhood, and for the healthcare providers to see that level of volunteerism, that level of compassion, that level of commitment to service from the non-professional, non-profit, sort of not the likely suspects. And to me, that was a sign of God's love and presence in community and in the world. And I think that is what I appreciate so much about GUM. Is that's an example. There are many examples I could probably cite going on. And another one would be when we formed the San Francisco Interfaith Coalition on Immigration some years ago, it was GUM that stepped up to the plate and said, we will host this convening of different denominations, congregations who want to make sure that there's justice for immigrants and inclusion of immigrants in our city. And GUM has been that host congregation for now many, I want to say it's at least 3, if not more years, every month being the place where others from the faith community congregate with representatives from the immigrant community, from the city, to really struggle with very difficult issues like the treatment of youth, undocumented youth who are here, it was not their choice to come to this country, but are faced daily with really painful situations, trying to just get the education and be able to be productive citizens when there is no immigration reform to give them that opportunity to legalize their status. So those youth are particularly vulnerable for deportation or harassment. And I think that in a lot of ways, the leadership that I've seen GUM take as both a host and then as being willing to go to meet with city officials, the mayor or mayor's representative, being always willing to go to the next level publicly to stand with those that are suffering, those who are vulnerable, those who do not have a voice, to really be a voice for the voiceless. In the words of Archbishop Romero of El Salvador, I'd say that that's one of the strengths I see that GUM brings is this kind of ability to gather others in its own congregation, but also beyond, and to be able to address those critical issues of justice for others and for all of us in our community. That's community building. To me, that's, and GUM is really stellar and really exemplary in being able to do that. And I think then becomes a model. So I would hold up GUM. There are other congregations I would hold up as well, but I would hold up GUM and Grace Fellowship as a model of how a congregation can be an active community builder and an active force for change and for improving the life of especially low-income communities or those who are on the margins of our society. I didn't come to being in a foundation as a career move. I came to the foundation out of doing faith-based social service and community organizing. And so what motivates me personally is the belief that from our deep place of faith and values that we can and will make a difference in the world in both a spiritual and in a physical and material way and sense. And so for me, I'm not sure if what the best way is to address your question, but the the problems, the issues that we work on are so long-term. They're part of the human condition. They're part of the fact that we have an incredible maldistribution of wealth and access in our country. And so when I think about what it is that really motivates us to stay in this work, whether it is immigration, homelessness, housing, youth leadership development, youth engagement, any of the areas that we work in, it's because we have a deep belief that this isn't the world that God wants us to live in, that as people of faith, as disciples, from a Christian perspective, just to put that hat on for a moment, that we're called to make this community and life today more reflect the reign of God, and that those values that we bring into the work make a difference, and that we touch people who don't even see themselves as spiritual or religious every day, and that just being that witness, just being that reflection of God's purpose and love is what keeps us going and what will make us have an impact over time. If we can't see it today, that's part of what makes us different than many others, is that we can see it, we see beyond what's in front of us and what's today. We see the promise, we see the possibility, and we know that it's worth climbing the mountain.
And when the first time it was amazing to me. We went over to Grace Fellowship Church, and everything was set up, different areas were set up for the children, and 3 or 4 people volunteered to do different things with the children. Besides, the cutest little platforms and little lounge couches were set up. If you've seen them, you see how cute they were. But anyhow, I couldn't get over it. And so, of course, the children went one by one, and they not only had their teeth taken care of, but they each got a new toothbrush and toothpaste and I think dental floss. But it was wonderful because the children were entertained as each group came in, and we just walked them back and forth. And that went on for, like I say, many years. And for the most part, your group stayed, I met the same ones every year. They were just very, very loyal to the church and to what we were doing and all. So then the last few years, as I get older, things are changing, and I think last year maybe, or 2 years ago, we had it here, which was wonderful for us because we'd have to walk them back and forth across the street with the little ones, not too good. But anyhow, and then we were very fortunate to have Bei-Ling on staff, and she just took over. And last year, in fact, I don't even think I was here for the last one here at the day home, whatever it was, but I'm not sure. But anyhow, it's just been wonderful. I tell everybody what a wonderful association we have with Grace Fellowship for many, many years. And I admire what you do so very much because you're out in the community and just doing what you can to help others. Hopefully that's what we're doing here.
Would like to say that I know that this great work is a direct extension of God's love, and I want to state it's been just a remarkable partnership, but it's because of Him, and I know that the reason why it continues to flourish is because of God, and He has allowed all of us, I feel, to touch so many lives of families over the past 4 or 5 years that we held this partnership, and I think it's just only going to get better because of Him. I believe that for right now, jobs, food assistance, and housing are the most difficult challenges that our families are facing today. And I feel, however, really happy about the way our partnerships have developed and partnered with Mission High School as a whole community. So I can see all of us, the partners that we have at the other churches, sitting down, probably in the near future, to talk about what we do in our components, each of our components in each of our programs, our outreach programs, and then take that into stock, and then think about how we can further help out of each of our programs, the families here at this school. So, and that's the answer to that. But and I do want to say that that I wanted to thank everyone again at Grace Fellowship Church, the whole entire congregation, because you all are so sweet and so loving and kind and generous, and I just appreciate all of you, and our school community appreciates you all. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. I keep saying that word, but it has been amazing, because for anyone to walk into a school, a huge school, and want to outreach to parents, and they don't know where to start, and the school is busy, the staff, the administration, everyone is busy, and they want those things, but to find a person, and luckily I was here to do that. Luckily I was hired just to do that, and I was on my way out the door to look for partners like yourselves, and then for us to find each other, it's just been, like I said, amazing.
With Grace has been wonderful. This past year, in spring, we had our dental screening. That was very different from our last dental screening, in that we had the Department of Public Health come out along with Grace and partner with one another. We also had a fluoride application done on the children. We thought it wasn't going to be possible a little bit at first, just because it was two different programs that had never happened before. But then next thing we know, we actually finished like 5 or 10 minutes earlier than we had the year before. So having two programs, partnerships, networking with Grace has been wonderful, and something that I had envisioned from the previous year when we did the dental screening. Some of the children, I was aware of some dental needs for some of the children, and I would talk to some of the parents about going to see the dentist and that kind of thing, but I think actually having a card or some kind of screening done at the school really empowered the parents to kind of see that there was something going on with their child, and that they really needed to go see the dentist. So they did go. I made those referrals, and you know, it was something that was really helpful for the families. Project Maggie was definitely a success. It was different in that a lot of the agencies that give gifts during the holiday season usually target families that are either in the shelters, living in the shelters, but not necessarily or homeless, but not necessarily lower families that are still working, but that are having a really hard time. So I thought this project was very great in that I didn't know really of any other program that could give so many gifts to some of the families, because we don't get those gifts, so it was helpful. Some of the gifts that were given included, there was this gift of a little toy for one of the daughters of one of the parents, and she's a little older, and she has cerebral palsy. So it was really nice to know that she was able to get a gift that she can use where she's at with her fingers, and you know, something that mom thought was a good idea to get her. So you know, they definitely haven't had an impact. Also on the children, the children were happy. They went there and got a lot of really yummy food, so it was a happy time. Another success of the dental screening is that, and something that dentists at the dentist office sometimes can't accomplish is getting the children to actually want to get their teeth checked and being excited about that, and being able to even look at them. So Grace was really helpful in that way. They were able to play games with the children, sing songs, brush the teeth of this little monkey, and get the kids really excited. Another thing that we started to do was tell the children, wow, how exciting, you're gonna go up there. And the children were even jumping, and they were really excited to go up. So, you know, it was really fun.
I don't know how to explain this. There were times that even after witnessing that and experiencing that, and after I've dropped everybody off, I'd be driving in my neighborhood thinking, God, I can't believe this. I just ended up feeling like I want to worship God, because it's life-giving for me, because there's something about us talking about the heart of God, and there's something about when you enter into a place of suffering, that's when you get to taste the heart of God. And in some weird, ironic way, you actually have this weird joy welling up in you. Especially since you meet the family again, and over a period of time, we're talking about a year or two, you see God beginning to bring his light and transformation in that one family, providing them a place, and eventually, by his mercy, providing them a home away from this setting. They're no longer in that situation, that particular housing project. There's been a lot of joy, even when I'm worn out, and it's a different kind of joy than when I'm worn out with my manager job at work. And I'm like tired and depleted. This one, I'm depleted at times, but there's a sense of life there, because somehow I'm experiencing the heart of God in a way that I would not experience if I'm just reading a book about someone else's story.
First, I came to Kaleo. I was invited by my friend Kevin. Now she's my boss. I work for her, but yeah, Kevin Kemp was the one who invited us to Kaleo. And I'm very grateful for the invitation. Before I came, I had the wrong idea about, I thought it was, I don't know, a Bible study or something. And at that time, I wasn't in church, I was away from church, and didn't want nothing to do with that. Yeah, that's how I came to Kaleo. I have to say, I discovered that I was wrong. It was nothing like what I was thinking about. So it was a very good experience since day one. I met there people who make me feel welcome since day one. And my son felt very, very comfortable there. He made friends right away also. And that was the first time I saw my son to be playing without checking on me every 5 minutes, So that was very impressive for me, to see how comfortable he was. And then everyone there treat me like they know me for forever, So it was a very warm welcome that I'm grateful for. Through Kaleo, I discovered the kindness. There is still kindness in people, and the people there have been helping others, and I'm one of them. They offer a lot of resources. At the beginning, it was parenting, I was able to share my issues. I have some issues, and I got a good feedback, and they helped me when I moved back to Hayward. A lot of people from Kaleo came and helped without charging me anything, which not even money for gas or anything. You guys are amazing. I also remember Craig. He helped me to address something with the company who was charging me, and because the lack of language, I was unable to communicate well with these people. But Craig helped me to email and get a waiver on the fees they tried to charge me. So it's a lot of resources there, you know. Every time I came, I was able to use the computers, you know. That, and also the friendship, you know, the friendship and the kindness, you know, always available there from everyone.
Part of my role in Kaleo is about 6 years ago, we started thinking about these families who are part of Kaleo and how some of them, as we get to know them, they have these different legal issues. So about 6 years ago, we started incorporating that into Kaleo. So for me, that is a large role that I play on the team. As an attorney, I provide legal consultation to Kaleo families who come to us. Most of the time, they're not coming because they have some kind of legal problem. They're coming because they want friendship. They're isolated. They don't have much of a community, so they come looking for that. Or someone invites them, whether it's another Kaleo member or someone from our team, or they end up at Kaleo. And then as we get to know them, we find out that they have these legal issues. So one of the families that I worked with was a couple who had come to us because one of the members of the team had invited that family. It was a family of 2 mom and dad and 3 kids. And as we got to know them, we learned that the dad had been a victim of a violent crime. And these folks were undocumented. And being a victim of a violent crime, I also knew that it could potentially be eligible for this type of immigration relief called a U visa. So I had the privilege of working with them. And even though it is, you know, that type of work is something I do at my job, it was very different working with this family because it was in the context of the church. And it wasn't just me meeting with this family every other week, but they really were embraced by the team and really embraced by the church. And we got to take care of the kids. My kids played with their kids. And it was a long process just because we weren't working on it like every week. It was really kind of a long process. And in the midst of that process, I mean, they were just going through, you know, stuff of life, like stuff in their relationship. So it was really an opportunity to just really enter into their lives. And it also was an opportunity to learn what was their story. How did they get here? Why did they come from this country in Central America? And I think it really just opened my eyes to just the difficulties of having migrated here, not having family here, and just the difficulty of living here without status and the fear.